Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? It's funny. I just did a video on classes and levels maybe a month ago or something like that, maybe not even. But this is going to be a response video to Runeslinger's video on class and level. And it's probably going to be less of a response or a proper response video than it is some of my impressions, some of the things that he made me think of while I was watching his video, some of the impressions I've had as I've been playing different types of games lately that are not class and level based and are more skill based. And some of the things just have been rattling around in my head. And so it's going to be a little tangential here and there, but if you've watched my channel before, you know I tend to do that. So you're just going to kind of roll with this and watch the video and have fun. So I'm going to digress here and there. Um, but let me just get started. Looking at something like OSR, old school Renaissance type games, which, that's the games I grew up with. The ones I have the most experience with. I've been wondering if there's a way to kind of tease apart and assign values to the various improvements for each of the four classes. Let's not get crazy here, Ivan, and make them somewhat available piecemeal. Something like that would take a little time, and it'd be pretty easy to tweak. And I am well aware that people have done this a million times. But I prefer to engage in like a thought exercise or deconstruction of mechanics myself and see where it leads me. And it's funny because Sebastian, No Inquisitor, just maybe like 2, 3 days ago, posted something on Facebook where he deconstructed or did a mathematical analysis of ubiquity probabilities and came to some conclusions here and there. And I kind of put down in the thread, hey, I've done that already. I think I even posted a video or two referencing it. I would have given you all the information and saved you the time. And he said, yeah, but you would have robbed me of the experience of finding the information out for myself. And I kind of laughed in recognition because I'm like that. I like to kind of do it myself and see where it leads me. I've done that with mechanics years ago, and sometimes found that it led me to the same exact conclusion that somebody else did and made, put into a game professionally. So, I like that kind of exercise. So this is kind of more for my own edification. And this video is not going to be about that, but I'll talk about that for a second. But, I kind of wonder, what is an increase in hit points worth in terms of experience points? What about each individual hit die, whether you roll a D4 or a D10 for your hit points? What about increase in attack bonus or THAC0, if I want to do that, or an improvement in saving throws, or just each individual type of save, whether you're talking about the 5 saves or the 3 saves of later editions. In spell slots, spell points, how much is that worth to you in XP? In casting level power, like you get to cast a fireball as a 7th level magic user and roll 3 6-sided hit dice for damage instead of or 7 6-sided dice instead of like 3 if you're casting as a 3rd level magic user. That sort of thing. What's that worth? What about each skill? Thief skills or other skills. What about the ability to turn undead? Etc. You get the idea. It'd just be interesting to do a little deconstruction, nothing major, and see, like, after I do that, like, what did I come up with? And then compare it to what other people have put down in games, because I know there's a whole bunch of games and tweaks where people have done it already. Maybe even get some victims to play test it with me a little bit to see how it works out. This video is not really about that, but I figured, what the heck, I'm more interested in something like that, deconstructing it that way, than in like some of the things like modern flavors of D&D have done. I think since 3rd edition, where you just take a level in something. So, okay, I want to take a level in Magic User now, right? Take a level in Fighter, something like that, in order to expand your skill pool. I'm more interested in kind of deconstructing and saying, what are these individual abilities really worth? But anyhow, that's a digression and a tangent. As Anthony said in his video, because his video is great. Levels certainly lend themselves to challenges and a way to gauge like how formidable a character is or opponent is at a glance. Heck, the OD&D method of rating characters and monsters in the old days was literally normal, heroic, and super heroic. And normal was nominally level 0 to 3. Heroic was 4 to 7, and super heroic was 7 plus. Some versions or some people will say, well, no, actually, heroic was 3 to 6. Doesn't really matter. You get the idea. There were like 3 kind of tiers. Doesn't really matter what the actual numerical values were. It's the idea. There were those tiers or divisions. In any event, something like a level, class and level based game or a level based game when it comes right down to it, it is really informs challenges on either side of the screen. But going off on another tangent, Arneson, Gygax, and company, they weren't stupid. That like normal, heroic, super heroic trifecta is really useful to compartmentalize, one of the factors leading to your game experience, which is like, well, just what's the basic level of power? What are these people really able to do? What are their foes really able to do? What's the world going to be like? And it's funny. It may be coincidence, but a lot of people that play Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's newer versions or the older versions, they tend to prefer like the heroic tier, for lack of a better word. People talk all the time about this sweet spot. I like level here to here. That's where I really enjoy it. And maybe level ranges are different, but many of us prefer characters that are definitely like they're obviously a cut above the average guy, but they're not supers either. We kind of like that middle ground. Some people definitely prefer the normal and really gritty, and some people prefer the super heroic. Um, it's funny too. Another tangent. Could make a case for most of the action movies that we watch being about heroic characters. No, whatever that division is. People are cut above normal, but not crazy, unless you're watching like the Avengers or something like that. And one of the things I've noticed is that many skill-based games tend to kind of pick one of these tiers, for lack of a better word, uh, for where the focus is going to be. And while characters progress in ability, via like buying, more skills or like becoming, you get experience points in one way, shape, or form, and you kind of purchase abilities or improvements somewhere, it kind of still kind of scrunches the overall feel or down to like one of these tiers. And so like the overall range or competence is smaller than something like a 20 level progression in something like Dungeons and Dragons. And one could make a case for a game like Ubiquity, the Ubiquity based games being sort of like a heroic type tier where, from what I've seen and read, something like 7th Sea First Edition is you're edging into the super heroic area where things are, very cinematic and you do these crazy things. So just food for thought. And as I probably said, in my recent class and level video, that system, like a class and level system, certainly gives like a really clear picture, not only of like what skill set the character possesses, via their class, but also gives a really simple, easy way to kind of eyeball representation of their journey towards mastery of their skills and their professions. And that's kind of like this journey that often shows up in the books that we read, or we might have read, where the protagonist goes through some sort of lit 101 journey. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but it's, thinking about it every once in a while. We've all read the books where a lot of times it's psychological, where the character is like, they're unsure, they don't know what's going on. Can I really face this, ultimate challenge? And then somewhere there's a turning point in the book. And I'm not going to make this about that either, but kind of made me smile. That's part of what class and level do. And I take, class and level games for what they are now, and non-class and level based games for what they are. And it's a fun and different experience in terms of defining the character, in either. Probably my biggest, number one issue with non-class level systems that I've checked out, and this is a preference thing, this is something I still kind of wrapping my head around with, or have my head around rather, is that characters tend to remain relatively static in terms of how easy they are to kill. That is, they tend not to experience increases in things like health or hit points so much as, I'm used to, where there's this, advancement, you get more hit points, you get more hit dice. And if you watch my channel, you'll know that I kind of conceptualize hit points as kind of being this defensive combat prowess or ability to roll the punches, your defensive combat mojo, your luck, your ability to jump out of real harm's way, not really getting hurt into the last few hit points. It's kind of like being bumped and bruised and running low on defensive, mojo or luck. I call it the Die Hard thing, where you see Bruce Willis and he's got the crap beat out of him, but he's not really hurt yet. You and I might have just be like flat in the back, like, oh, that's it, we're done. And he's still able to function and get the bad guys at the end. So that's kind of what that's what I see as a guy with 50 hit points is like. He's not really he's not getting a sword or a piece of steel stuck through him or getting really shot with a gun, multiple times. That's not what happened. He's better at not getting hurt. So thus, like to me, when a character in like a level-based system or anything which gives you more hit points or more health over time, when they increase in that health or hit points, this represents an increase in their ability to escape real injury when they should have been struck by a telling blow. Like that should have got him, or injured by a fall or an explosion, whatever. This is the guy that can jump out of the way and still like, man, that sucked, but he's not really hurt. Any kind of an unfortunate event happens, they're less likely to really get hurt. Just as an increase in something like attack bonus, or however you represent offensive combat ability in a particular game, that's just another representation of their ability in another area. They're better at hitting people, whatever it is. It's just another way to what's the word I'm looking for? Represent that they're getting better at not getting hurt. That's what I'm saying. This really doesn't happen in a system like Ubiquity as much. I mean, you can take the robust talent, which I think you can take it twice, and it gives you +2 health each time. But the other thing you can do in a system like that, you can purchase talents like I think parry or dodge or block, where it gives you this ability to get a bigger defense dice pool rather than sacrifice your attack action to do that. So those are ways you can kind of mimic that a little bit. But that's the game I have the most experience in and actually playing. I'd love to see a mechanic in that. Maybe I'll fiddle around with one. Maybe somebody already has. to represent some sort of chance at like a damage soak or avoidance in ubiquity, where you have to roll dice. Do I escape this damage or not? Even though I already took it, so maybe a skill. Although one can make a good argument for basing it on any one of the 6 attributes. I might play around with that. It's just like a thought, not like anything really serious, but just one of those. Probably the thing that bugs me the most about like non-level based systems so far. Not that I want to have 110 hit points either, but I don't see as much of the, at least in the games I'm looking at right now, much of the ability to kind of get better at just not getting hurt. Switching gears entirely. As Anthony mentioned, I'm a big fan of open classes as opposed to like closed classes. The idea, like, I don't like a restrictive environment. And in something like OSR games, I've pretty much removed all the restrictions from classes. And I gravitate towards any kind of retro clones, but they've already done that. I prefer more realistic consequences, and I'm not going to make this a D&D video because I've talked to this subject right here to death. But the idea that, okay, if you're the sneaky guy, or that's supposed to be your vibe, that's what you're known for, if you carry around a ton of stuff and you're wearing plate mail or carrying a longbow and a claymore, or you're carrying around a grenade launcher or whatnot, you're probably, it's probably going to be a little harder for you to sneak around, harder for you to be unobtrusive and be a Waldo in the crowd. You can do it, nothing's stopping you. You're just not going to be as good. So it's more realistic consequences rather than a thief shall not wear, anything more than leather armor, or, magic users, shall not wear armor at all, or clerics shall not use edged weapons. Magic users may not use a sword. Thieves can't use bows. That's just, I just prefer realistic consequences. So I like the open class thing. And I'm also fond, the other side of that coin is I'm fond of the idea that, when you started play, this is what you were. This is what you were good at. What and who you become is up to you. And I've certainly played that way most of my life. However, I've generally done that within a framework of a defined class via a role-playing level. I have 2 fighters. They're very, very different. One's some kind of noble lord, and the other guy is some kind of swashbuckler. Maybe third guy is some kind of barbarian. The other guy is some kind of lowlife that's just really good at beating people up. You can play various different things. But I see the allure of supporting that with mechanics. So that's one of the reasons that, like, I house ruled a small level of skill points available for non-specialist characters in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which is a concept that I did not invent. Likewise, it's one of the reasons I'm keen on teasing out all those various skills and abilities and improvements in the classes in an OSR game just to see what I could come up with. I know other people have done that, so that's just a tangent. But I understand, like, in other games, I've certainly enjoyed the ability to fiddle around with my character in Ubiquity, and so I like that kind of open class where you start out as something, and then where you end up is you find out. I've always found out where my character ends up in terms of their personality. I've talked to this to death, where I have a little concept of who the guy is, and then during play, I find out who Philippe really is. I find out who Duras really is. I find out whoever the character I'm playing really is. And so I like this idea that maybe your concept can kind of do a little bit of a left turn. So in any event, in these skill-based games, it's and skill and archetype. It's cool to see just how a mechanical concept can take a bit of a left turn, just like the personality can take a left turn, or the role-playing concept. The other place where verisimilitude can break down for me in terms of like non-class level-based games, and also, to be honest with you, other games like later D&D, 3rd edition and up, which allowed people to like take a level in something. Are those times when it involves like a specialized kind of like brain surgery ability? It's kind of like magic. And Ubiquity, most of the games I've looked at, they do a pretty good job at avoiding that. The idea, like, all of a sudden one day, Joe the fighter decides, well, he's going to start learning how to do wizardy things, and all of a sudden he's casting spells. And I can get behind somebody becoming a real fumbling and bumbling practitioner of the dark arts at first, but really starting to gain like a new skill. I like the idea of these unique skills. Like, at character creation, you pretty much have to determine that your guy is adept at magic or has this real, he's a brain surgeon, that sort of thing. I recall a video made by Tetsubo57, I think, a long time ago I watched this, where he made this observation that in the real world, most people have one, maybe 2 things that they're really good at, that they really become really good at in their lifetime. Like, that's their thing. And it starts to strain credibility a little bit when a person becomes adept in several areas, sort of like a polymath. It's a lot different than being a jack of all trades, although both can be a bit much. But like, there's like I said, there's a difference between the jack of all trades and the guy that's just really good at magic, and really good at fighting, and really good at brain surgery, and really good at physics. And after a while, it gets to be a bit much. And I think in that case, in that video of his, man, this video is getting long, but oh well. In that video of his, he was talking more about he was kind of not into the idea of taking a level on this and taking a level on that in Pathfinder, because that's his game, which I'm not into either. But it's kind of, I think we're talking about the same thing here. Where the brain surgeon type skills, yeah, breaks verisimilitude for me. However, let's switch gears again. I do resonate a lot with the idea that Anthony talked about, that the focus of the experience is that things come back to the character all the time rather than to the game. And I think this speaks a lot to like our personality. I think we have this shared personality preference for like what we want our game experience to be about. So I identified with this preference for the center of attention to be on the role of the character, and also, what the character chooses to excel in, but why? Who are they? Rather than, oh, I wish I could be a magic user. Wish fulfillment. The level-based systems definitely inherently they can enforce like more of a gamist feeling, for lack of a better word, due to the snapshot or thumbnail representation of power, competence, mastery, challenge. However, to be honest with you, it's certainly possible to play a skill-based game with improvements based on experience in a manner that emphasizes that whole gaming side too. And I dare say many people do just that. And I'm not disagreeing with Anthony at all in terms of when I share this experience. But in some ways, it's even easier to become focused on the game mechanics when deliberating how to improve your character. Whether it's in something like D20 Pathfinder, which is a class level based game, although I think it's kind of a hybrid game when it comes right down to it, where you've got this choice of what do I spend my skill points on? What do I buy this feat? Which feat do I take this time? And a game like Ubiquity or other skill-based games, you're like, okay, man, well, what do I spend my XP on this time? Do I save them for a talent? Do I increase this skill? You can get really gamey with that too. But I'm not disagreeing with that. I think it's just these different games have different ways of kind of reinforcing a gamey feel to them if you want it. And here's the thing though. I'm looking at like, what are my plans for this XP for Philippe? What am I going to do with them? Do I save up a bunch and increase like an ability score, or do I or a global skill, or do I improve this other skill for less? We were talking about that. What am I going to do with my guy this time? But I definitely had plans. Let's go back to this Lamentations of the Flame Princess campaign I talk about a lot. I had a ton of fun, and some years ago now. I had plans for my wizard in that game. And some of the plans I had for him was, okay, when I get to level X, then I'm going to be able to cast spell level Y, because I already killed a wizard that had this in his book, so I have that spell, but I just can't cast it yet. So that'll be cool when I get there, right? So it was based entirely upon game mechanics. However, I had a heck of a lot more plans for this guy for the future, based on like non-mechanical goals in terms of like political power, social maneuvering, setting up circumstances, money. Setting up circumstances to use certain abilities, such as to summon a demon and enslave it. That was one of his biggest goals, but it required money and social connections and get all these ducks in a row to be able to do that. It had nothing to do with game mechanics at all. He could already cast that spell. It was the idea of like, let's get ourselves in this exact position. It never happened, but that was one of my bigger goals. We had other goals in terms of where we wanted to position ourselves in the world and who we wanted to be. We're not based on game mechanics at all. So, it's not a disagreement, but I think you can, just like I think Dark Age of Roleplay games said, you can roleplay either way. It's different, but anyhow. So Devil's Advocate, maybe in a class level system, particularly a very cookie cutter one like OSR, one can enjoy a very non-gamist experience in regards to the, even as the tiers of improvement are laid out. But I thought too, as I mentioned already, like in many ways, the modern versions of D&D are sort of like a hybrid between class level and skill-based games. Strict class level seems to be a lot more of a function of like early D&D, but that's my own perspective. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to make a 20-minute video, but here I am. I've enjoyed branching out into non-class level based games. The flip side to not having this exponential increase in power, either defensively via like hit points or in other manners, such as like steady increase in like offensive combat prowess, has meant that the threat of danger posed by various enemies or creatures remains somewhat static. Okay, you're playing All for One Regime Diabolique. Vampires can always be a frightening challenge. We got away easy on that one. I think Sebastian forgot a couple of abilities. He did, so we got away pretty easy. However, the flip side of that, though, means that like traditionally tough creatures can be taken on by beginning characters if they behave wisely. And if each has, like, say, a focus on a particular skill set, if they're able to coordinate their efforts, they have a chance of survival. They play wisely. And once again, Thinking about that, we're back to my analogy of the heist or the caper that I made so many years ago, where one assembles a team of experts and you go and do this job. But that spread has been kind of narrowed down. So, like, okay, the enemies are always a threat, but you also always have a chance if you play smart. So, yeah, those games definitely seem to have the effect of squeezing that power level or power spread down to a manageable level, which is something I've become more interested in over time anyway. I like that heroic feel. So you can play a game like that, and I don't think that's necessarily the entire function of those games, but you can decide, okay, what tier do I want to play in? Do I want to play 7th First Edition and be kind of heroic and really cinematic? Are you listening, Seb? Or do I want to play a little bit, cinematic, but a little bit more down towards like, heroic? It's a little bit more believable. I couldn't do this, but I can conceptualize a guy. I know a guy that can do that. you know. So at the end of the day, class levels, skill-based, granular improvement type games, large power spread, small power spread. There seems to be like two sides of the same coin. 4 sides? Is this D4? Maybe they're ends of the spectrum, different domains, whatever. But I wonder to myself, is there a happy medium? Because there's parts I like about both. Well, stay tuned. We'll find out.